imprisoned for 3 years. And when he came out of prison, his wife was pregnant. So he was not able to see his family for 3 years. So he had a son that he has not seen. So on the day that he was freed from prison, you can just see the hugs and the kisses and the tears of happiness that were going on at that place. You know, the husband hugging his wife, hugging his child, and just crying out of happiness, out of joy that he is finally reunited with his family. So the mother is a bit busy on this side, and the son is talking to his father, and he is, as he is talking, he calls him sir. So the father looks at him and he says, "Don't call me sir. I am your daddy, call me daddy." So the son looks at him and goes, "No, you are not daddy. Daddy is the man that sleeps with mommy every day." Now, to add insult to injury, there is nothing worse than this. Now that you are wrongly imprisoned, and on top of that, you find out that your family was not faithful to you. So immediately, his face changes. And as they are driving back home, his wife is talking to him, but he's no longer the sweet, loving husband that he was a few minutes ago. And she does not know why, but she explains to herself, you know, probably it's because the jail time that he had to do. I mean, that we're talking about more than 1,000 days. They change a man. His face changed. He's got all gray hair all over. He lost weight. He's really changed. So they go home. And she's talking to her husband, reminding him, "Do you remember what we said when we made that vow? If Allah ever frees you from prison, we are going to make, you know, Hajj, or we're going to make Umrah." And the husband blasts back as his wife, and he says, "You're not even pure enough to go to the house of Allah." And now she doesn't understand what he's talking about. And in the midst of anger, what does he do? He pushes her down the stairs. And she falls down the stairs. She goes all the way down. 20 steps she's going down. In the meantime, the son is coming to his father, and he's showing him a picture. And he said, "See, here is daddy." The husband takes the picture, and it is his picture 3 years ago. He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Every night I come to mom and I say, 'Mom, can I please sleep with you?' Mom will say, 'No, you cannot sleep with me. I am going to sleep with daddy.'" And she holds the picture. He runs downstairs to see what happened to the wife. She broke her spinal cord, became quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck down. Now tell me, how many times can you say you're sorry? Tell me, how many times can you say, "I did not mean it"? Tell me, how many times can you say, "I wish I asked, I wish I did"? But see, the question is this. Islam says, even when you get information about other human being, make sure that you verify it. Do not let your worst of assumptions kick in. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. O ye who believe, whenever you receive information, verify it, so that you may not harm other people and bear the ill consequences of what you do. But again, in the process, we forget that we are dealing with human beings. Not only that, but we tend to be very selective as to what kind of human beings we like to love and get along with. One time it was said that a young man was in the army. So after a few years, his family never heard from him. He calls home and he says, "Dad, I am on my way home." And the father is very excited. The mother is very excited, and they're all waiting for that day. "You know, we're so happy that you are coming back." And then he asks them, "Dad, can I bring a friend with me? He was, you know, in the battlefield with me. I like to bring him with me." They said, "Of course, no problem." And then he said, "But there is only one problem with him. We were walking one day, and a landmine, exploded, and he lost a leg, and he lost an arm, and he lost one of his eyes." So they said, "No problem, just have him come in." I said, "You know, Mom, actually I'm not bringing him in. I like him to live with us." So the father said, you know, or the mother said, "Son, we're talking about someone that is severely handicapped here. We cannot, it will be a lot of responsibility, just great inconveniency, you know, to have someone like this in our house." And as they are talking, they find out that someone has hung up the phone, or he's no longer on the other line. And they are screaming, hello, hello. No one gets anything. Few days after, they receive a phone call from the police. And they say, we have a body here and we believe it is your son's body. And we like you to come and identify the body. You know, all saddened, they go there to identify the body. And they said, you know, we do not think that he died out of natural causes. We believe that it was a suicide. So they go in to identify the body, and here's what they find. Their son lost a leg, he lost an arm, and he also lost one of his eyes. What happens is that we feel that our love or acceptance of other human beings is very conditional. So long that they do not cause any inconvenience in our lives, we are going to take them. The more good looking they are, the better social status that they have, you know, the less inconvenience they cause us, that is when we are getting them. In reality, a person does not lose his integrity or his dignity because of his circumstances. One time, this speaker was invited to give a motivational speech. So what he did is that he took $100 from his pocket. And he said, who would like to have this $100? So they all, you know, all the people that were attending, they all raised their hands. We want $100. So I said, okay, one condition. He takes the $100 and he really crumbles it very bad. And he says, now, who wants this $100? And all the people that raised their hands earlier, they all raised their hands again. He goes, one more thing. He throws it down on the ground and he really steps on it and he picks it up again and he says, now, who still wants this $100? They all raise their hand again. They all want the $100. He takes the $100 and he spits on it. And he says, now, who wants the $100? Again, they all raised their hands for the $100. And then he says, ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case. You just learned a great lesson on value. You all knew that the crumbled $100 was still worth $100. When I threw it on the ground and I stepped on it, it was still worth $100. When I spit on it, it was still worth $100. Human beings are like that. No matter what circumstances are, no matter what difficult times they're going through, no matter how much they have failed, no matter how crumbled they may be, no matter how many people have stepped on them, they do not lose their value. No one loses their value, my brothers and sisters. No matter how poor you are, beginning with you, you should never allow anyone to degrade you because of your circumstances. Equally as important, you do not degrade and rip people of their human dignity and integrity because of the situations that they are in, no matter what they are guilty of. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he was presented with a man that was drinking alcohol all the time and people started cursing him, he said, do not curse him. He loves Allah and His Messenger. Now this is an alcoholic, and the Prophet ﷺ is saying, look, this alcoholic person loves Allah and His Messenger ﷺ. Meaning that I may be guilty of it. But guess what? It does not reduce my human dignity and integrity no matter what happens. And every time you deal with any other person, make sure, my brothers and sisters, that we recognize the difference between these two things. Between the person and between the performance. We can criticize the performance. Definitely was an evil deed. It's a terrible deed. It was a bad deed. But the person himself does not lose his human dignity and integrity, even if he is a kafir. That's what was said earlier. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. The children of Adam were all honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we say this, wallahi, it is not for the sake of political correctness, or for the sake of sounding good, or for the fact that we have non-Muslim in the audience. That is irrelevant. We are relaying the teachings of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We are talking about what Islam is saying. And what Islam emphasizes is not the human rights, although it was greatly addressed. It was the fact that, remember that they are humans no matter what. No matter what, they are humans. And that is why, again, the Prophet ﷺ, and you hear this, all the time here. And that is a person, you have your child walking around, break something, and you start cursing them. Or you start yelling them, or giving them names. And the Prophet ﷺ said, look, إِنَّ لِلْآنِيَةِ آجَالٍ كَمَا أَنَّ لَكُمْ آجَالٍ فَلَا تَسُبُّوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ. He said, your household items have an appointed term the same way that you have an appointed term, so do not curse your children. And you hear again people stripping other people from their human dignity and integrity no matter what happens, and Islam absolutely refuses this position.